Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. I am kind of taking over Vanessa's page today for Author Mama Writes. We're going to just keep doing this back and forth because we like spending time with one another. So I thought it would be fun to turn it around on Vanessa and ask her the questions this time, get her advice. She does great book reviews. She's an editor. She's an author. So really, I'm thinking that people are going to want to know more about you, Vanessa, behind all this stuff. So
thanks.
I'm gonna ask the questions today. Although I was thinking it would be fun to do a lightning round with you of some quick questions with like answers. Do you want to do that first?
Okay.
Okay, so when you're writing, do you snack or no?
No, rarely.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Iced coffee or hot coffee?
Either, but mostly hot unless I go to get it.
Okay, flavored or black?
Honey.
Oh, just
I know.
honey.
I
No
gave up
cream?
I gave up sugar. Well, a little almond milk because I can't really have dairy, but
Okay.
I gave up sugar for a while for like this exercise boot camp, and then I just tried black coffee and sorry.
Okay, is Arizona in lockdown or not? I haven't paid attention.
Yes, but
So
things are opening.
I think we answered this before, but morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Big time. How late? How late do you sleep?
Time. If it's 10, I will almost plan on not going to bed till midnight or 1.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. So you get your time alone at night.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Were you like that before though? Were you a night owl?
Yeah.
Before? Always have been.
Yeah.
I think that's something people usually stick with. They're one or the other.
I'm trying. Okay, so you talked about writing early in the morning. You said you like 6 to 8 or 5 something.
Right.
So I tried it. Aaron went to work out at 5 in the morning someplace else, and so I got up and I like forced myself. I put the timer on. I went 10-minute timer, 5-minute timer, 3-minute timer, like on my bed. Finally, I got up. I ended up with only like an hour worth of writing because I had to make coffee, and then Aaron had to go to work early, and I was like, this isn't working.
Hey, that doesn't sound fun. That's not, but it takes a while.
Yeah.
To get to it. But if you can do it at night.
But I can't write at night. I can't. So that's
really? Even though you're a night person?
If I start like at 7 and I keep writing, maybe, but if I start writing at 8 or 9, I'm like, ugh, like
interesting.
So the new thing I'm trying is get Aaron out the door by 7.
Okay.
And then write until 9, because the kids can pretty much get breakfast on their own.
Right.
And we just start school later. So I plan on starting school around 9 or 10. So I can have 2 or 3 hours. It's interrupted, but I don't plan on doing anything else.
Right.
So I did try that a day too, and that kind of worked. The hard part with that is that I don't want to stop writing, and then I'm like,
yeah,
you don't need school.
So I guess that's all I can get for a lightning round, but that gets me into like, what is your rhythm? Like, you're a busy homeschool mom, you edit sometimes, and like, are you editing all the time, or do you just pick times to edit?
No, usually when I need to publish a book, I might try to find something to edit so I get some money.
Smart. There you go.
And it's actually like, if I wanted to make money, I would not write books. I would edit books. Because I can probably make at my level, which, I'm a novice, maybe $20 an hour. Dang. So it takes a lot of time though. Man, I can't do it while I'm writing. It sort of has to be like in between.
Okay, so you maybe stagger them.
Yeah, I have
to edit so that you can write.
Yeah, and I don't have like an editing business where I have like clients waiting. It's more like I can find clients if I need them, like through different friends or resources. I'll be like, do you have anyone that needs editing? And oh yeah, I actually do, So.
Interesting. Okay. Well, and someday I will be back.
Yeah.
When I get my act together, which actually leads me, I'm going out of order on my questions.
Oh no. Okay.
They have to go fluidly. So I'm dealing with writer's block. It's not so much block, like I don't know what to say. It's almost like stage fright. Like I don't want to get that blank page is just staring me down. So what do you do about writer's block? Or there's that whole like fear when you're starting a new book, right? Where it's like this blank page is really intimidating. It takes a while to really it's like jumping into water, I would say.
there's like a lot of, like in the beginning maybe, or you get to that middle part like you said, and then you're like, ugh, this plot has to actually take me to the end.
Yeah.
Like my pantsing method only goes so far.
Right.
And so you have to sort of stop and plot it out a little bit more. So
Right.
so the things that I have found that have, and I'm just getting over some writer's block right now. The thing that is my number 2 problem solver.
Number 2. Okay.
My number 2, I'm going to start with number 2, is to be willing to go a different direction. Like, be willing to dump the scene. And this is what I have found, is that I will try and try and try to go forward, and it won't, the characters will not comply.
Right.
They don't want to say what you want them to say. They don't want to do what you want them to do. It sounds contrived. Like, it's just horrible. So the few times that I realized, I was like, what if, okay, just what if, I'm like usually laying on my bed, what if I don't do that thing? And then all of a sudden, it's like something explodes in my head, and I'm like, boom, and I'm like, that way.
And then do you fly out of bed and go write it?
I will grab a notebook and bullet point really fast if I don't think I'll remember it, or else I'll just try to scenario it through a couple times so that it's still in my head. And the reason that I think I don't want to do that most of the time is that I really like my scene, a portion of their conversation or how I worded it, and it just breaks my heart that I can't use it. So then my advice would be, and I really want this video to be less advice and more just my experience, because I still feel like I'm a newbie in a lot of ways, definitely. So I don't want to sound like I'm giving professional advice. I'm not giving professional advice. I'm giving my
experience though.
My experience. So my experience is, don't throw away those scenes. Don't delete those scenes. Do you do that? I save them.
Do you have I have a deleted scene file.
Yeah. So, well, usually what I do, this is usually what I do in the moment, is I highlight it in a different color so I can separate it. Like, say I'll do green, and then I'll drag it or cut and paste it to the very bottom of my chapter. And so then if I'm like, that would have worked, I'll scroll down and I'll try to find it. Yeah. And then I'll pull it back up and rework it into another scene. I'm like, that conversation goes here. Do you do that?
There you go. Yes, I am the same way. I don't like to get rid of it. So the way that I did it, like, I probably look like a hoarder in my files, right? Because I have so many deleted scenes. But you're right. You can go back later and go, wait, that would actually work here, or,
a more hands-on approach, less like thinky. I'm going to show you. Let's see. Okay.
Less thinky. There's the word for the day. Less
thinky. Okay.
What is that?
So you
wow.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I don't attempt to be neat and tidy. So what I did is I literally go, okay, what do I need? I'm blocked. I need to go somewhere. I can't go somewhere. I will write out my chapters. So let's see, what did I do here? Crossing paths. Tristan comes while Velena is at the convent, or Machias objects. He learns the truth. Tristan comes back. Like these bullet points, and I will write them out on sticky notes or on these strips of paper so that I can then go like this. And I'll put them on the floor and I'll move them. I'll be like, well, can this go here? Well, that stinks. What if that's there? What if I write something else to stick there? Will that work to the plot? And then I put them in here.
Is that just a folder?
It's just a folder.
Okay.
And then I usually forget about them after.
But it's getting in your head that way. I mean,
I don't usually even follow this after I do it. I just do the part I was stuck at and then move on. And then later I realize I didn't follow it, so I'm stuck again. So then I also have.
So wait, do we take this advice then, or do?
But we're just talking about getting unstuck in the part you're stuck at.
Right, that's true. Right.
And so that's my hands-on. My other way is to get a really good friend or my mom, and I say, okay, I'm really stuck. I need my character to do this. And she's like, so what's the problem? I was like, well, they can't do this because of this. Do you think that would be unrealistic? And she's like, well, why don't they do this? And I'm like, well, they can't because of Oh, got it.
We all need that friend there's a meme about it that some author shared that like, thank you for being the friend that listens to me talk for hours and come to my own conclusions, and all you do is sit and listen and give snacks. Like, it's just...
My favorite. And then my mom gave me this advice this last time because I said I needed to add a couple chapters on to the end of my book. It just wasn't finished. And I was like, I don't know. I hate filler. I hate fluff. I don't want to write a chapter that doesn't need to be there. Right. So I was like, I don't know what comes next. I mean, I know what comes next, but I don't know how to start the scene. And she goes, well, why don't you ask your characters? Don't you say they talk to you or something? So I did. This is funny. I wrote, okay, let's see if we can do this. I wrote Tristan. Did I write that? I wrote Tristan's POV, Velena's POV, Machias's POV. And I was like, so if Tristan has something to say, what would he say? So I started here. I said, he would say how he felt about seeing Velena again, blah, blah, blah. And then it turned into Machias's POV at the very, like halfway through, like this arrow, it all of a sudden switched. And so I drew an arrow from Machias and I went, he's got something to say.
That's awesome.
So I thought it was Tristan, but it wasn't. It was Machias. And so sometimes
that's great advice your mom gave. That's brilliant.
And then my number one problem, how I get writer's block, I think, is, and I think maybe you have it less than me, I don't know, is that to stop writing in the first place. I binge write, and then I don't write for weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's like I'm stuck. Do you do that? Or do you stay consistent?
Do I what? What was that one?
Or do you stay consistent? Because I feel like that would get rid of a lot of writer's block right there because you're just in it.
You know, yes. The most successful I've been, like last year, I said from January to March, I wrote the same book 3 times, like almost in its entirety, but I kept getting them to this one place that didn't work. And then I would start all over trying to avoid that place and end up there again, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't. And then when my husband was diagnosed with MS, like I said, we kind of I got distracted researching that, and then we moved to remodel the house, and now I'm trying to get back to it. So I feel like when there's been time that I've been away, it's much harder to get back in. And the story changed in the year that I've been away anyways. The whole thing changed. So now I'm just looking at a blank page with a whole bunch of deleted scenes that I can pull in later. Okay. But when I'm consistent, even if I'm like when I did that schedule where I would get up and, okay, you're going to write for 2 hours from this time to this time, no matter what, the whole family knows that's what's happening. And then I made myself stop at that time. I stayed really consistent. And I kept track of how many words I would have each day, and then would add it up at the end of the week. And it just would be like, I do that with my workouts. I have a check mark on my calendar for every day I work out, and it keeps me working out more. Does that make sense? So like the word count every day, it didn't matter if it was only a few hundred or 1,000. It was, well, we're still building. Does that
and I think that's probably one of my biggest disadvantages is my lack of consistency. Yeah. And so once I get my rhythm, so find a rhythm.
Yeah.
If you get your rhythm, I think that takes care of a lot of writer's block right there, because your mind is always in the story.
Right.
Otherwise, these things actually do really, really help me.
That's good stuff. Okay, so dump the scene. Be willing to dump the scene.
Yep.
Talk to your characters. Ask them where you're going next. Get hands-on if you need to. Get outside of your head and off the computer, maybe. Yeah. Okay, so back to the cheesy cliche question to begin with.
Alrighty.
So were you always a writer, or did you just have a story you needed to write?
I guess I always wrote. You know, like when I was a little kid, I wrote stories. In high school, I wrote some stories. I still have them. You know, in fact, sometimes I've thought of like, hey, maybe I'll upcycle these into like actual books.
Right.
But I never thought, I just did it for my own enjoyment. I never had a thought that I wanted to do it as a profession. Or if I did, it was a very, like fleeting thought.
Right.
So it wasn't until I think, so there's kind of a progression for me. So there's just the enjoyment of it. And then one day I went to a beach on Prince Edward Island, like my first big girl vacation with my friend.
Okay.
All the Anne of Green Gables stuff. And I was sitting on this beach, and it was like gray and I don't know. It was like scary looking, and I was like, oh, I just have a story. So I got out my notebook and I wrote just this Actually, I'll show you. It's this book, The Hello Said the Ocean.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
That's where that came from.
Yeah, it's my only children's book. So I wrote that, and then my husband one day said, you should publish that, and that was just really sweet of him. And so that got me the idea in the first place. So meanwhile, before that though, it was the stories that came to me that made me be like, write it, make it good, do it. And so you said you were in the back of a church when you got your idea for your big story. I knew that after I wrote this, I did not want to write children's books. P.S. Yeah. that was it. Okay, so these are my little yellow. This is the story. This is my whole series right here on little Kohl's.
Oh my goodness.
So I was in Kohl's and there was a song playing. I was married only a little over a year. Okay. And I was missing all my friends from college and feeling nostalgic, I guess. That night I worked at like midnight putting up these signs. And these songs would play over Kohl's like all the time. And there's this one song by Hoover Phonics called Out of Sight. And I was like, and there's a phrase in it that says, you'll always be my best friend, something between you and me. We'll always be best friends.
Okay.
And I just was like, I remember I just stopped. I was on break and I was like, oh my gosh. And I grabbed all these little signs and I plot pointed it from beginning to end. I would say I didn't know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages would end up being a 5-book series, but I didn't know it'd take that long.
The series is right there already.
The ending is different. Okay. I mean, it's kind of the same, but this one took a turn. It's different. It's somewhat of a different story, but the main idea of the story on the first 3 pages at least are still what the books are about.
That's amazing. And so how long since you wrote that before you wrote the books?
I started this in 2006. And
you did?
Yes.
Wow.
But Aloria...
13 years? That's 13 years.
Yeah. Yes, Aloria's 13. She was a baby. And then I started... that's a good question. I should see when I published the first one. 2016, 10 years later.
Wow, that's amazing.
This was really a long journey for me. So I just wrote like a chapter and put it away, and another chapter and put it away. I'd see scenes, like you said, in the back of your head. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh, and I'd write it down either on computer or on paper, and then I'd put it in a file. And then one day, I just thought, I'm gonna get serious about this. So I laid all my chapters out on the floor, but again, hands on. I printed them all, laid them on the floor, and then put gaps in between chapters that needed chapters in between, and then just put a piece of paper down and went, this chapter needs to be about this. This chapter needs to be about this, to connect them.
Right.
Then I stacked them all up, and I mean, I stacked them. These are the originals.
You have so many hands-on things.
I know. And so that's the way it started.
That's so cool. So, okay, so you're listening to these songs, you're thinking of your college friends. So I have 2 questions off of that.
Okay.
They don't really go along, but maybe they will. So one of my questions was going to be, how much do you make your books about your life?
Oh, yeah.
And I know you've said that a lot of the characters in there are from Multnomah, but I don't remember most of them because we hung out in different circles. But
that's true.
But I know the faces, so I can picture it. So how true to are any of the things that are happening in the books real life things that you guys did?
Yes.
Do you like that you wrote that way, or do you regret it at all?
No, I like it.
Okay, and your friends like it.
Yeah, I hope they like it. What was fun was the main character, one of the main, I hope this doesn't give away like plot points in my actual book, because I feel like when people know my backstory, they're going to be able to predict stuff. But the one character, Tristan, is based off of a friend I have, and he read it, which was very sweet because it was for him. Like, the book is predominantly written, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like it's for God in gratitude of the very unique friendship he gave me. And I was so thankful for this friendship. I wanted it sort of immortalized, and I wanted my friend to know, thank you for being that person in my life, and know more than what you were, you know?
Yeah.
So
okay.
that's why I wrote it. And so when he read it, at least he told me, he said, I had a lot of fun. I'd be like, oh, I remember that. Oh, that happened. Oh, that happened.
Oh, that's fun.
So the first book was the most probably memory driven in terms of actual life experiences. Now, obviously set in medieval times. So let's say Valena and Tristan are playing chess and they have an argument. Well, we didn't play chess, but the argument was about her double standards and how she's upset when he doesn't understand her and she's upset when she doesn't understand him. And he's like, so you get to be mad both times? Like, that was real.
What were you playing when you had that conversation in your life?
Yeah, he could pick out those things. Now a reader wouldn't. I feel like as a newbie author, it really helped me to use real life experiences, and it also really helped me to base my characters off of people that I knew. Right. So we talked about character sketches last time, but I didn't need character sketches because although my characters were not the friend, so one of my characters, Rainy Days, is off of Rainbow. I don't know if you remember Rainbow.
I remember her name.
Yeah. Well, how can you
not? I can't picture her face at all. I mean, you don't forget a name like Rainbow, but
she's a very compartmentalized person. She's very black and white. So when it came to writing her character, it was just, she has a very unique personality, and I was just able to then, because I have so many characters, and so I was able to keep these characters separate. And what has blessed me so much is that I've had people tell me, oh, I know exactly who's talking when they're talking.
That's fun.
So that they stay separate.
Based on who they are.
Based on who they are. So they're written with their own voices.
Right.
That you don't have to you don't really need the tagline always, he said, she said, to know who's talking. But so I did become fearful though of writing a completely independent character, not based off of anybody.
Right. But you do have some.
I do. And in fact, those characters are extremely central to the book. So Daisy, I tried to kill her off for 2 books.
And she would not be killed.
She would not be killed. And my mother-in-law was like, who cares about the main character? What happens to Daisy?
I love Daisy. Daisy's really lovable. And she is just, you made her up.
I just made her
not
up.
A friend.
No.
You didn't. And then she's a friend.
And Stuart, the villain, he is also completely made up. I don't know.
I thought you were about to say he was a real person, and I was going to be like, oh.
I know, he's pretty evil, right? So
I figured he was not from any crowd at Multnomah that you would have known. Otherwise, it'd be a little obvious. If you had written some villain that everybody knew about, that'd be bad.
Did you? Oh, I know, right? The other thing that was hard in having characters from my experiences is that now, did you read both 1 and 2 or just 1?
Yes, but I don't remember 2 as well.
Okay.
1 stuck out more.
Okay. So after about book 2, and maybe even in book 2, I started coming into problems about plot because my character, let's say, or my friend's characters, I was like, but they wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And I had to rip myself literally away from these characters and say they're no longer. I think it was a very newbie thing to do, to just be like, these are my friends and look what I'm doing.
Right.
But then after the second book, I was like, no, there's plotline and progression and arc and all of these other things. And it took a lot for me to veer. I say, you're right. I would not do that. He would not do that. But we're going to do that.
Right. And the characters have to do that.
Tristan insisted on it.
And he is very compelling. You have to listen to him. You have to do what he says. That's interesting. I think it's, I had done that when you say newbie mistake. I had done that with my first book. I named a lot of the people in the book off of people I went to church with.
Oh.
But I didn't really model them after them. I did only so far. And then I had a review that said, oh, it was fun because I recognized everybody in the book and then others that weren't mentioned by name. And I thought, well, there's no one else. So whoever you recognize, you're wrong. But
so they're reading into it.
So that's the danger. You can, if people know that it's about them or someone else, then they do try to keep them in that box of who they really are instead of letting you do what you need to do as an author. So I'm proud of you for ripping out. I hope your friends are understandable.
Well, I think in hindsight, I still don't have a problem basing a character off of somebody as long as you can take it away from their actual things that they would do.
Right, and you've proven you can do that. So if you can do it, go for it. It's working. So do that. Okay, so then how did you get to medieval time? How did this idea in Coles about your friends go to Black Plague?
Oh, okay.
How does that happen?
How did I get to medieval times? Okay, well, oddly enough, the Hooverphonic song, if you watch the music video, there's nothing medieval about it. But when I heard it in my head, I pictured, I'll tell you, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. At the end, Bryan Adams sings that song, and they take you through like this montage of scenes. Okay.
Facing in and out of this scene.
So this song was my montage of the music playing as the scenes came through my head, and it was medieval.
Interesting. It just came to you medieval.
It came to me medieval.
Interesting. Okay. You're gonna have to put that music video or that song in your show notes or something.
Oh, okay, I will.
So that people can go see what you mean.
You'll never know why it's that song. And then, but the problem is that I didn't know how long the medieval time period was, and so I looked it up. What's medieval times? 500 to 1500. AD.
At all.
That's 1,000 years.
Right. So how do you pinpoint where?
So for me, my process was going to the library, and I brought home about 19 different books on late medieval times, early medieval times, mid-medieval, just anything I could find. And I brought it home, and I just started skimming to see what might inspire me to write in that time period, maybe a historical event or the clothing that, if it was really based off of clothing, I would have gone a little later medieval times. Their clothing was a little prettier. But and this is one of the books I found. I'm going a little early on this, but it's called Medieval Costumes. And it takes you through the medieval times and how their costumes changed.
Oh, that's so neat.
And what they were called. And so I could describe them a little bit better.
Okay.
But what happened is I came across the Black Plague because that's very predominant in medieval writing.
Right.
And I felt like it would be very forgiving in a weird sort of way. In case I make a mistake, maybe everyone's a little crazy because of the Black Plague. So I no, as honest to goodness, I thought it's going to take place during and after the Black Plague. So if people try to do things a little different afterwards and I mess up history a bit, maybe it'll be forgiving because everything got so topsy-turvy, and honestly topsy-turvy because of this situation. And so life would be different than normal. Right. And then also, how would the plague affect each person's mindset when they all thought the world was about to end? How do you react to that? So that was my idea, and I actually had so much fun with it in this, icky, sort of sad.
Right. I was thinking of what the Black Plague does and how you describe it. It doesn't sound fun. Is it interesting now watching this virus and the panic that has ensued from this virus and watching it actually kind of happen? Obviously we're not dealing with the Black Plague here, But we're responding almost just as badly.
Try promoting your book when everyone's quarantined. No one wants to read that. You know what I was happy about was I think writers do probably excel in imagination. You sit there and think of all these different things. I mean, I could come home and think, what if Aaron died? And then like, boom, this whole story about me as a single mom, and it's like, and I'm crying in the car on the way home. I'm like, he's not dead. Stop it. So I really tried to picture what a person would feel like who was quarantined, and delightfully, I found that a lot of those things turned out to be kind of true. I mean, I have found that I have some friends who will go out and not be afraid. I have others who don't want to step out their door. They're going to wear their mask in a car, and they wear their mask on a walk when nobody's around to breathe in their face. So you've got like the extreme, and you've got the meh.
I think there's extremes both ways.
There's
just the.
And Valena's character was one where she was afraid to even leave the castle for a while. And Tristan had to draw her out of that. And Daisy was less scared. She was kind of in the middle. And so I was happy. I was like, cool, okay. I forgot to tell you that one of the other main reasons actually I used the Black Plague. I think this was actually the main reason. I forgot about it. The predominant age was 15. The world was literally run by 15-year-olds. I mean, there was older people. But the highest percentage of age was in about the age range of 15. But I did not want to write a story about a 15-year-old girl getting married, but that was the age, 13 to 15, somewhere in there. But I thought, how can I delay getting her married? Because I can start at around 18. I can't do 15. I just can't. And so she was in quarantine from the age of 15 to 18 because of the Black Plague. It was my out.
Smart.
So they didn't have to marry her off right away. So anyway, there you go.
Well, and her person, I mean, it's been a little bit. Well, I don't want to give away your book. Never mind.
Okay.
I won't go there. Do you said you started writing your books when your oldest was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So when you write your books, are you imagining or even thinking about your kids reading them someday? Or do your kids want to read your books? How does that play in at all?
Yes and no. I don't want... Justice, my son, is actually more interested just in the writing craft itself. He would probably read it if I'd let him. The fact that I wrote something makes him very proud of me, which is really sweet. He's 11.
Sweet.
My daughter is a very young 13, and I would not have her read it right now. Mainly because it involves romance, what men might be thinking of women, and she's just not even liking boys yet. So I don't want to be the one to introduce the struggle. And the struggle is real, right? I do think sometimes when I'm writing a scene, she'll read this someday. I don't want her to, be like, Mom.
Don't want to be cringy.
No, it's adult content. I don't try to glamorize it. And I think you did a fantastic job because your topic was about the sex trade, and I was terrified to read that book. I loved the way that you said enough so you knew what was happening, but you didn't give the details and you didn't take us through the gruesome part of it. And so I try to do that as well. I only want to go so far. I wanted people to enjoy my story without being bogged down by details that didn't need to be in there. And although there are adult themes that maybe Oloria can't be exposed to yet, or I don't want her to have to think about, I also don't want her to be ashamed of me later that I wrote something. Like it's not an erotica book. I don't want it to be. I mean, and I'm a Christian author, so I definitely don't want it to be that. Decide ahead of time how graphic you do want to be, because there's people like Francine Rivers who I would consider kind of edgy. Mm-hmm. Some people do not like Francine Rivers because of the topic she writes about, and others want it very, very like fluffy and sweet, and you don't want to feel things. I don't want to feel that little buzz inside me when he kisses her. Like I don't feel that, So, and you don't want to be sensationalist, because I feel like there's been moments where I wanted I didn't mean to be sensationalist and I took it out, but real quick, I'll just be really honest. I had swear words in my first book.
Did you?
Yeah, see, and I don't even know, you read it. Did you remember them?
Oh, you didn't take them out. I remember a couple of swear words, but they weren't hardcore swear words. They
No.
I thought you meant worse ones.
Oh, no, not worse.
You just used like a few little short 4 letters. Not the big 4 letter.
No, not the big part. Like damn or
right.
We have to edit that out.
It fit, in my opinion, it fit who was talking.
Yes, and that's why I did it, because I felt like I could describe how bad he is, or if he's the only one. Like Rowan was a really Rowan is a really likable character, and he's really playful and really fun, but he's not a Christian. And so I feel like when Tristan asked Rowan, like, well, what do you think of Stuart? You know, Rowan's response is, well, he's an ass. You know, like that to me was like, there, I've already described him. He's fun, he's nice, but he's kind of got an edge to him. So maybe he's not saved. Maybe that just gives you an insight into his personality.
Right.
But I did not think, I didn't want to be the poster child for putting any sort of words in Christian books. And I did have one reviewer say, you know, I read books to escape this sort of world. I will not read any more of this kind of stuff. Now, I went back and told her when I took them out. I posted, I just said, just so you know, I did take them out and I had my journey.
Right.
And she actually read the second one then.
Hey.
But then felt it had too much romance element. So I was like, never mind, I'm not taking it out.
The thing is,
you can't
please everybody.
No.
But it is important, I think, to whatever, like you kind of said, you need to decide ahead of time how graphic you want to be. And whatever kind of author you are, you need to be very loyal to that. So there will be people that say they're Christian authors, and I'm not certain why, because they themselves do not hold to the Christian faith, and maybe their books don't have graphic sex in them, but they have things that aren't in line with the Christian values, right?
Yeah, and
your reader is expecting something when they come in. So if you are a Christian, you do have to kind of be aware of what you might have to really go for the people that wear the long skirts and use King James only. You might have to just remember that they might read your book. Not so much cater to them. You don't need to go take out everything that woman wants you to, but be aware and
and do some soul searching and praying and kind of take it to the Lord ahead of time, because or else you'll end up like me, where you change them afterwards and you're trying to backpedal and you're trying to go to your reviewers who gave a warning, like, just so you know, she did use these words, just heads up, which was fair. But she did take that out later for me too, when I said, you know, I don't have them there anymore. And I was not trying to be sensationalist. It's just what that character said in my head, which is weird because I don't even swear. Like, I don't say those words.
That character does.
That character does. But is it worth offending a reader and not allowing them to hear your story if your story's worth telling?
Right.
And that's where I was like, you know, I need to take it out, because I won't say I took them out just for my readers and not because I wasn't convicted. I mean, I suppose it's kind of like whether you drink wine or not, there's a certain liberty there. And I'm not talking about hardcore swear words that are really just, you know, offensive and they mean really nasty things. I'm not going there. But I felt like, you know what, the Bible tells a hard story. This is my reasoning. The Bible tells a hard story. They don't gloss over bad things that happen. It's in there. And so there's some things in there, you know. But in the end, I didn't want to offend people. I felt like the Lord did use people to change my direction. And he did it gently. You know, he guided me away from that gently and be like, I know you want to be the best author you can. I know you want characters to say that, but let's just, you know, move you over this way. And so it would have helped if I had thought those things through ahead of time, but I didn't know that I would want to keep on writing. I didn't know that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life, and what image am I projecting of who I am as a Christian.
Right.
And anyway, so all of that, those are things I think would have been very beneficial to have thought of ahead of time.
That's smart. It's difficult because sometimes you just don't know until, And sometimes you need your reviewers to give you that feedback before you catch it. There's those things you have to balance. You can be really creative in still keeping the character who they are without having them say a curse word. You can maybe even just say, he called him a 3-letter word. You know what I mean? Like Francine Reverse does that a lot, where he swore under his breath, but she doesn't say the word, right? If you can think that stuff through, then you get like real quippy, creative ways to say something, and then you have a better product anyway. I think
you do great. Sometimes. Yeah, that's great. Very true.
Good job. Good example. So you are an editor.
Yes.
How do you handle being edited?
Ooh,
how does that work for you? Do you have a consistent editor?
For me, personally, not everyone feels this way. It was happiness itself to get my first draft back all read. I was like, yeah! Like, I was so excited because I read a lot of Christian fiction growing up. What I felt was good Christian fiction. I didn't want to write a book for writing a book's sake. I thought, if I'm going to write it, I want to stand up there with them. I want to be like them. And so I don't think I've achieved that yet, but at the same time, I wanted the editor who first did my book to tell me everything wrong and to somehow let me know that I ranked somewhere in there. Like, I didn't care how much red was there. If I have to address all of that to get good, then I wanted it. So I just did. Now, handling it, I mean, that's one thing. The excitement is there. I did find that as I faced those notes, that you do have those cringing moments where you're like, you just don't understand. That's not, what do you mean you don't know what direction they're facing? I was very clear.
I just said it.
I just said it. But so, okay, so being an editor, I realized the trouble with working with writers. Like, these people are hard.
They're emotional.
I have to tell you, there was one book. I got to read the first part. I won't show you the cover. It's the struggle we had together, but it's not a put down.
Oh, okay.
She had to go through the process. So this is the process. I thought I was going to die. Blood was dripping from the yellow rose I held in my hand. The sky was turning surreal shades of pink and gray. I was running out of time. I was like, but actually her first edition, or her first run through, said the roses are bleeding, is how she put it. It's a fantasy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And I was like, whoa, that was awesome. I read that book waiting for that to happen. Why did she think she was going to die, and why are the roses bleeding? Nowhere in the rest of the book did this come up. So I asked her, I said, what about the roses are bleeding? She goes, oh, well, I read that you have to write a really good hook to get people to start reading. And I was like, yes, but you have to follow through on the hook.
The hook brings them to the thing.
Bring it around. And she kind of fought me on it a little bit, it felt like, or just was a little bit hard to get her. I was like, you need to address it. Why did she think she was going to die? Like, you need to address.
That's a great hook.
It was so good. So we did get around to that, and she added those things. But I think after that, when it flipped on me again, and my second book, and Laurel was editing me, and she's like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, pitch it. Take it out. Not worth it. And I felt like I was much freer to just give in.
Right.
And just say, if you had to read that sentence 5 times and I thought it was brilliant,
right,
obviously it's not brilliant.
Right. See, and that's important. And if you feel like it's an important sentence, you could ask a few other people without giving them what you think. Just, could you read this page for me and tell me what you think is happening here? Right? Because I think if you go in and say, my editor says this happened, but I think this, what do you think? Your friend's going to tell you what you think because you just told them what to think.
I'm a novice in the editing industry, so I look this stuff up. There's different kinds of editing. There's copy editing, there's line editing, there's substantive editing. You know, one of them handles specifically more like the grammar, periods and commas, and did this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Content editing is obviously more on the content of your book. Does the plot make sense?
Right.
Line editing, I believe, is actually straight up, do you need the word that in your sentence? Could you choose different wording? Grab a thesaurus. What is the flow of your sentence? Could you make that better?
Right.
And so in the beginning, I would say, in my experience, the best editing at first, though, is the plot editing.
Right.
The content, and have people say, that doesn't make sense. I don't think she would really do that. Would that character actually do that? And let people tell you, and don't get offended. This is the part where, like, you get refined, because how many times have you been thrown out of a book because you're like, what?
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Right.
So
right. I read a book. I had tried to read a novella. I don't like novellas, but I had tried to read a novella set from some pretty top name authors that had gotten together. And I could not get past one. And I finally just like, whatever about it, when the male character did not know how to slice a banana. I'm sorry, I can't go with you there. I can't join you in the world of this man who has a career and is training to be a doctor, does not know how to slice a banana. That just doesn't make any sense to me. That's my children could slice bananas when they were 2. It's not.
Yeah.
So that's important stuff to have your editor. That's the kind of stuff, it doesn't matter how good your book is, that will throw your reader off and just be like, I can't go there with you. So that's where content editors, you're a very good content editor.
Aww.
I have always said that even if I like had to break it up, and like I have a friend that would do grammar editing for me for free. Like, yeah. Okay, but I'd still get to do content because you're really good at that. It's important. Thank you. So it sounds like you being an editor has actually made you like a dream writer for your editor.
I hope so.
I bet they love you because you're just like, whatever you want. I wanted to ask you about research, but you did a really good job of showing us how you got there. Do you always do all your research ahead? It looks like you did it ahead of time, but are you still researching as you're writing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. The reason I did all that ahead of time, one is because I was so unfamiliar. So I think if you're a historical writer versus a contemporary, you might be able to get away with different stages of research. So like you do your research, you said kind of along as you go, as you need it. And there is a level of that I do, but I didn't have any framework for medieval times. So I didn't really know what I could build a plot around. How do they live? What do they turns out they only eat 2 meals a day for the most part. So do you want to say they eat breakfast? They don't eat breakfast. Kind of lunch and dinner. And so they went to the bathroom in garter robes and used hay as toilet paper. I mean, so that's an option, COVID.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's freaking out about toilet paper. It's a pretty new thing, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, for the historical part, I did feel like I had to at least have a basis. And like you, I probably couldn't pull up a ton of stuff. But if someone wants another hands-on thing to do, I did put tabs in here. In this book, I color-coded something. Anyway, it's all my internet research.
You're so organized.
Well, kind of. It's bad. I didn't bother to go out and buy tabs. I just got pieces of construction paper and made.
So you're organized and really smart because you're kind of ridiculous.
I've got a lot of kids, so right? You don't have time to go to the store. Right. So what it was is like games they might play that I found that were medieval games, or holidays. How do they celebrate holidays? And names, because they're in the castle a lot of times. They're not going out to coffee shops,
right? Yeah.
And they get bored, and so you're like, what do they do? So they would play games, or can I fit in a holiday right now to just spruce up the scene? Oh yeah, child. So after I did all that initial research, and I don't turn to that very much. Okay, this is my pet peeve in research. So if I could ask any author, I don't care if you're experienced, I don't care if you're a novice, when you do like 100 pages of research and then you give me 99% of that, I am so irritated. Like, I don't want to read all that. And I don't read
Radium Girls. That's what it is.
Oh, it's like if you write about a doctor and they go in for surgery and then you take 5 pages describing to me the surgery, I would rather you say, and he went into surgery and he came out. Boom.
Right. There needs to be a little, so I'm reading a book right now where the woman is an expert at something and she's supposed to be using her expertise on this other character. And so far, I don't understand why she's an expert, because she's an expert in teaching him not to talk with an accent, and she's a doctor of some sort, a professor, and all she's doing is correcting him every time he says ain't. And that's the whole premise of the book, is her teaching him this new way to speak. And I'm thinking, why does she need a doctorate to say, you mean don't or aren't? You know, you need a little, if you're gonna have something be, you know, maybe the doctor, you could just add a little bit. But I agree with you, if they do the sutures and the slices and the every little tiny bit and all these words you'd understand, that's just fluff and filler and boring.
Unless it has something to do like with the scene. There's a climax and you're doing this super big surgery and he's about to die and you won't get married if he dies. I mean, I don't know, but like it has to be like
the heart's beating in the background. And
yeah, like it has to, if it doesn't move the plot, I don't want to hear it.
Yes.
And so I have these other books that I would use. So, okay, so medieval costumes. If I needed to address wardrobe, I would look at that one. This one is amazing. The Time Traveler's Guide to Medieval England. It goes, he's giving you so many visuals. So if ever I'm like, he went to town, I'll brush up on it.
Right, smart.
I just got this one, The Code of Chivalry.
Chivalry, yeah.
Because there's more, some knight stuff going to be in the 5th book that I just wanted to have that. I have a book on Totnes, England, because that's where they live. And then, oddly enough, I bought a book on Meister Eckhart, which was a German mysticist.
Oh.
And I got this whole book, didn't read it, only to make one comment in my book when Tristan was looking at books and thought it was funny that some guy was using the Christian mystics book as paper to wipe his bottom. Like, he thought that was a whole book for that. I bought the whole book. I didn't know what I bought the book for. I thought, I'm going to look it up and see what their thoughts on religion were.
Okay.
You know, so I could stick in there. And it turned out that I needed it for one sentence. So
now you have toilet paper.
Yeah, now I've got toilet paper. So I feel like you do like mounds of research to give like 1%, because in my mind, what I like is you just want enough for it to fade into the background. So you feel like you're there, but you're not actually learning about it, right?
Yes, because you need to be able to put yourself in the setting and be familiar enough that it's flowing. But you're right, you're not there to teach somebody about, you know, like Radium Girls, she actually is trying to teach you about a historical event. So her whole book is really made up of segments of actual
so it's more like memoir or biography or something?
Kind of. I mean, these girls finally came out against the company and sued them and had to try to prove you're killing us by telling us to eat this paint with radium in it. And so she's really she kind of does a story a little bit, but then brings in quotes, like a letter that someone wrote, and he left a jawbone in his desk and forgot about it, and then later you find out that the jawbone was lighting up everything because it was lit up with radium. And but
well, do you feel like there's a place for those books? Did you actually like Radium Girls?
If I had known ahead of time going into it, it's a meaty book to teach you about something that happened. It's not a story.
Okay.
It's not a fictional way of, but she does it really creatively. But that's the one time I think her book was made to be that way, to give you the 99% of information and 1% of story to make you feel like you're there. Mm. But in fiction, that doesn't work. And I didn't realize till later that she was not writing fiction. She was telling. Oh. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So with her book, it wouldn't work because you don't want to just copy and paste all your research books there. You want to just know how you did it really well. She, plaited her hair. It's not she braided her hair. Is that how you say that? She plaited?
Plaited, actually.
Okay.
I always said plaited. I like it better. Plait is like plait. I don't like the word.
Plaited her hair.
She plaited her hair.
Well, but you know exactly what's happening, and it's such a flawless. I keep hitting my desk really hard. Sorry.
Oh, I can't hear you.
It's a flawless, as they're walking through, and there's, different halls and things. It's in the background. It's not the story, but you're there. You do a good job of that, I think.
Thank you. And I will throw that right back at you. I still remember, even though it's been so long since I read your first book, The Heavens Are Telling. I still remember one scene where they're walking through, maybe it was Walking Street or whatever that was, the way you described the neon lights or the neon sign. You're like the glow from the sign or whatever. And I just had the picture of lights and kind of a seedy area. And that's all I needed. And I remember I even stopped there. I think I probably put a star. I was like, I love this sentence.
I do that too if I just like how something's said. You can appreciate that as an author, I think, just how something's said, not even anything groundbreaking, just how someone
let me show you something else. Hands on. Where is it? Okay. So I don't know if you do this, but if let's say you're starting out writing and you're like, great, it's great to tell me how to get over writer's block, or it's great to tell me to accept editing comments, but that doesn't actually mean you have good writing. I mean, you might get past writer's block and you're still writing a crappy story. I don't know. I don't want to say that, but it still happens. These are just tools. But if someone's saying, so tell me how to be a good writer, we talked about this last time, right? Be a prolific reader. And I feel like you have to grab your books. But okay, I'm going to show you. Even though I don't promote Diana Gabaldon, it's what I use, so I have to show you that one. This is from A Breath of Snow and Ashes. I just grabbed it off the library shelf, so you can't really see it, but let's see, what did I write?
You highlighted.
I wrote description, action, tag, movement, feeling. And I highlighted, and then I counted. How many times does she say he said or she said? Because there's some authors that do more like movie type. See, so instead of saying she, I don't want to do that, she said, you might say, just so you know which character's talking, you might say, Amelia brushed back her hair. I don't want to do that. So you're getting an action instead of a tag. And so I started comparing books that I didn't think were very good and books I did think were very good. And I literally highlighted, I printed how many tags did this person use, how many tags did this person use, how many adverbs, like ly words, did this person use compared to this person, how much. Then the ones that I found that I liked the best was like description, action, and then smell, touch, feeling. They put a little bit in there. And then I took my book. Printed out my book, and I did the same thing. Compared myself, where am I at? Who am I closer to? Because if I'm over on this side, I want to be on that side,
Right.
So I think if you want to be a good writer, figure out how they do it, dissect their sentence.
That's so smart.
Did you ever do?
And be honest with yourself. I think being honest with yourself about where you fall.
Yes.
Because you can't fix. I mean, I have this thing where I wish I could go back and fix my books that I've published already, because you grow. And I think it was Mark Twain, who said he would not read a book of his after it was published because he knew he'd want to be part, right? He wouldn't look at it. And I try not to do that either, just because you want to fix it because you're always growing,
Yeah. So, do you ever read them and think, do you ever read a part of your book and then just think, why did I ever think I could do this?
All the time.
I suck. I should not be writing books.
In fact, I think it's every single time I get halfway through my book, I'll send my dad something about this book is horrible. I have no plot, blah, 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 blah. I'll say all these awful things, and my dad's text every time will be, okay, that sounds about right. It's like, he knows that's my process. He knows that's halfway. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right for halfway through your book. You always hate it when you're halfway through your book. And it's, I will always think I can't write, but I like writing and have to. I don't know if that's, I don't have as many ambitions as you do. Now you're inspiring me, though, to go and study more and pay more attention. And
to be completely honest, I feel like I had to fight to write something as good as I possibly could, and I still feel when I look back and go, it wasn't as good as I possibly could. Now, like you said, you grow and then you get frustrated that it wasn't as good as you possibly could. But you have got to be so proud. I looked at your ratings, Bethany. You're like nothing less than 4.8, like 4.9. Your first book.
Which feels bad to me, because if people aren't saying bad things, then that means not very many people are reading it. In my opinion, that's just, I get like 1 stars on Goodreads. And I don't really like Goodreads. I don't hang out there, so I'm not familiar with it, but I'll get 1-star reviews, but they don't tell me why, which is fine, but I can't fix it if I don't know why.
I particularly like your voice and the way you write. And if I could choose one, I'd probably choose yours over mine. But I like the way I write, but I particularly
your readers would probably not like my stuff because they, you know what I mean? We're different, but we can like each other's, and I guess our readers could like each other's, but you need your voice. And I was thinking the other day, I think I put my finger on, so your books to me are just edgy enough that they're not 100% true to medieval times in my head. And I started thinking of it like, you know what? Her books remind me of, what's it called? That Heath Ledger movie where he's like, you know what I mean? You know that movie so bad. You do? But I love that movie. And it reminds me of your books just because. Yes, because here's why. Because it is in medieval times-ish, right?
No, it is medieval times all the way.
It's kind of modern too. Or if you want to say that Romeo and Juliet with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio, where it's a certain time period, but there's enough modern element to it that it's a little edgy. I think that's like where your books fall in category with me, and I don't know if you like that, but that's where that's the category they fit into, and then they're fun in my head. Does that make sense? But I like reading your books. I like your books. I like how you write. I like your plot line and your stories. And now even hearing the research that you did and why you did it and why you picked that time period, I'm even more fascinated to go back and reread the series, because I haven't read 3, but I need to. 3's published, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think so. I think we've given good tips for new writers. Would you want, we like to hear from other authors also, even new ones. So they should leave in the comments, what do you do about writer's block? We would love to hear from the listeners. What do you do about writer's block? What do you do for research? Do you research ahead of time? What do you do with routine? Like, we said that's really important.
I need a routine. Give me a routine.
Ideas of your routine, because obviously 5 a.m. does not work for Vanessa. So we need to pick other things. Like, show us what you do and maybe tell us more about yourself. Like, are you stuck in quarantine with 5 kids in an apartment in Manhattan? How do you write? Because I follow a writer, actually. She writes kid books, the Vanderbeekers. I forget her name, but I follow this gal on Instagram. Like, she's writing in this time. She'll share about, just wrote this many words, turned in these edits, whatever, but she's got all this chaos around her. And then there's people who are, out in the mountains or something, or the guy who writes the Green Ember series, he has his own little writing cottage in his backyard. And,
die
we're
for.
working on that in the real house. We're working on a writing cottage. I call it the library so everybody else feels like it's for them, but it's really for me. So I can go right outside. So leave us comments. We want to know from the listeners who are authors.
What else you want us to talk about?
Yes, right, because we're going to start reviewing books together too a little bit, because we just have too much fun. Well, okay, so next week we will be talking about the difference between inspirational fiction versus Christian fiction. Is there a difference? Should there be a difference? Why we think that there should be a difference. Vanessa and I's opinion about that. And we also will start to give our own book recommendations, because we read very different books. And we'll probably talk a little bit about a book that we both read and have very different opinions on for different reasons. So, like, hint, she loves the male character. I hate the male character. And we'll talk about why. She has a good reason as to why she loves him. So, I don't know if you love him, but anyways, we'll save that for next week. But so we'll meet again and talk more.
Right. Bye. Thank you guys so much. All right. Bye, Bethany.
Bye.